Welcome to the My Ransom Notes Noah podcast, the podcast for newly opened and awakened hearts, with your host, author, and lifelong student of love, Evening Ransom. Now, let's get into the show.
I'd like to know your point of view. Let me ask what's come off there.
Hi everybody, welcome to my Ransom Notes. I'm Evening Ransom and this is the Noah podcast for newly opening and awakening heart. What we're here to talk about is that I got a blog post from a blog that I'm on. He was talking about all these scandals in Hollywood that are going on with all these narcissists coming out with people that are powerful, people that are harassing people that have less power in Hollywood. For those of you who are old enough to remember, in 1991, Clarence Thomas was nominated for the Supreme Court. His confirmation hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee, you probably recall, his one-time assistant, Anita Hill, came close to losing him his appointment after she revealed some pretty sordid facts about his behavior towards women. Hill described how Thomas would brag openly about his sexual abilities and make suggestive comments and about female staff members and things like that. And, it was a big deal. She was really incredibly brave and didn't get, really got beat up in the press, and it was, really incredibly painful. This was 1981, so it was a long time ago. This blog post that just came out just this week, but it was referring to something that was actually written in that actually happened in 2010. So Thomas went on to join the Supreme Court. He was very, very conservative. He's very, very conservative. Back in the time during that whole thing, she passed polygraph tests. He refused to take them. And for many years, Anita Hill was subjected to character assassinations, such as this guy David Brock wrote a book titled The Real Anita Hill, and he later apologized for lying about her in that book. He later described his role as having been that of a witting cog in the Republican sleaze machine. Hill became a professor of law at Brandeis University, and eventually all the unpleasantness of the Thomas's Senate hearing became a distant memory. At least it was until Clarence Thomas's wife, Virginia, went and stirred it up again. Now, this is what was interesting. It's interesting to me, for an even different reason than it was to this person who did this blog. Because he doesn't blog about narcissistic abuse. He blogs about soul types and past lives and things like that. And so he was interested in how this played out in the life purposes that they had and the soul types that they had and the reasons that they were here. But the reason I'm sharing it here with you is because I think it is such a great example of how narcissistic abuse happens and how smear campaigns happen and how unwavering and unchanging these narcissists can be. And what I saw here when I read this thing is how similar to my mother this sounds. Okay, so 19 years later, so this all happened in 1981. In 2010, Ginny Thomas left a voicemail message for Anita Hill asking her to apologize to her husband. And here's what she said. She said, "Good morning, Anita Hill. It's Ginny Thomas. I just wanted to reach across the airwaves and the years and ask you to consider something. I would love you to consider an apology sometime and some full explanation of why you did what you did with my husband. So give it some thought and certainly pray about this and come to understand why you did what you did. Okay, have a good day." The call was made on the same morning in which Ginny Thomas' name was plastered all over the pages of the New York Times for accepting huge anonymous donations to her conservative group, the Liberty Foundation. The problem, in part, is that Ginny's husband was one of the 5 justices who made the receipt of huge anonymous donations actually possible. But why, after 19 years, would Virginia Thomas call Anita Hill? Didn't she have enough on her mind that morning? What did she hope to accomplish? To untangle the confusion, of course, he goes to his spirit guides, but I think we can look at something else. We can look at narcissism. Here is this woman who is a narcissist, clearly a narcissist, who is like an overt narcissist will do. She, sees the world in a very black and white way, and she has self-righteous thing. A lot of overt narcissists really back up rules, of course, for everyone else, not for themselves, but they get behind authority figures and laws and things like that, and can become very pious and self-righteous and that sort of thing. A lot of it is because it creates a veil of illusion. It creates a perception of them as being a certain way that they're really not. It's also a way of really lying to themselves about who they are, and really projecting. They project outward all their stuff onto somebody else. And so I think it makes perfect sense on the morning, 19 years later, why on the morning of this whole thing? First of all, narcissists don't forgive and forget. She probably harbored this even more than her husband did, although he was a narcissist. You know, she'd harbored this, and then what had happened clearly is that she'd suffered a narcissistic injury. She was in trouble this morning. She was getting a narcissistic injury. And so, of course, it makes perfect sense that is the very day that after 19 years, she calls up and leaves a message on Anita Hill's voicemail machine. Now, also keep in mind, this was on a Saturday morning. She was definitely planning that this would not be a phone call that was going to be answered. She didn't want this to be a two-way conversation. It was supposed to be an intentional jab. She made the call at 7:30 a.m. to the office on a Saturday morning. You know, she was not intending anyone to answer the phone. She just wanted to leave this message. You know, I think that when I read this, I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds just like my mother, who after 16 years, more or less the same thing, you know, expects that I would want to apologize to them, that I have something to apologize to them for, and that they're victimized somehow after they've done, you know, just really horrible things to me, which I could easily delineate. I mean, it would take me all day to make a list of what they all are, and there's not one thing that I've done to them. I just thought that was very interesting. With all these things that are going on, it's such a time right now of all these power plays and narcissism really coming out in the media. And the good news of that is that I believe that that's going to mean that this problem is going to become more easily identified among the mainstream. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that what doesn't happen is that it becomes that the word narcissism or narcissistic personality sort of loses its impact or loses its real meaning. That's what I really don't want to happen. You know, I want it to be, what would be ideal to me is that, you know, what happens when you go say something like divorce court? What happened, a perfect example of what I would like to see get changed. One of the reasons that I'm here, one of the reasons I do this channel is because I want to get information out there into public so that no one has to go through what I went through. Because I just really, really spent years in the dark, just, you know, not having any idea what was going on, and just fell into every trap, and, you know, it was just really, really awful. And I could have saved myself and my children a lot if I had been up to speed on what was going on. And so, like, for instance, what happens in court is if someone comes out saying something about you being a drug addict, there is this immediate knee-jerk reaction, and you get labeled with this thing, and then safety measures go in place before they figure out if it's true or not. If someone calls you a drug addict, they act as though you are one until you prove you're not. Measures go in place to keep the children safe and all this sort of stuff. I would love to see that same reaction happen if someone's called a narcissist or antisocial in divorce court, because that's where it would really be appropriate, that immediately safety measures go in place for the children, and the person has to prove that they're not a narcissist. They do not have narcissistic personality disorder before they can get access back to the kids. That to me would just be a dream come true. That seems like a long shot, because people watching my channel, you know, in the divorce I didn't come out and say anything about what he was, but I did in a subsequent custody battle that happened like 9 years later. It kept me in court for almost a full decade. The very last time that we were in court, I did bring into court the written diagnosis that he had. And here I have a written diagnosis. And not only that, but this has played out in Technicolor in our lives for years. And there's all kinds of examples of how true it is. And there was not an ounce of attention paid to it. Not an ounce of attention paid to it. Now, probably part of the problem was, too, is that it was, you know, unfamiliar and all that, but also because half of the people involved in the whole thing were also narcissists. By and large, the lawyers were, in that thing, my lawyer was not, but in the divorce, certainly my lawyer was, his lawyer was, the judge was, the guardian ad litem was, and, you know, he had everyone wrapped around his little finger. And so, and then also what happens in family court is is that once a decision is made, all energy goes to keeping it in place. And so it's really, it's a lot to try and get something changed. We had a shared custody thing happening, and it was sort of his mistake, but he went in trying to get full custody for some crazy reason. His wife wanted to get me out of the picture or something, and so that's when I said, please just drop it. Let's just keep things as they are. And he wouldn't. And so finally, after he didn't, and it was just getting, crazy, I said, well, I got to have full custody because this is crazy. I can't keep going through this, and the kids can't have to be exposed to this. And so I went for full custody and got it. So that's where I got the kids free of him. Unfortunately, by the time they were free of him, there was another thing in ruling my son's life that he never did get free of. And of course, that was drugs. But that's what I would like to see. I would like to see there is a high concentration of narcissistic people in Hollywood. Let's face it. A lot of people that are narcissists are, do seek that spotlight and do want fame and all that. And so it is going to be a high concentration of people there. And it's also going to be a high concentration of very insecure people there. And so it is just a breeding ground for it. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy, this avalanche of things that's happening. And that it is years later. But this is really funny, this whole thing about Clarence Thomas and his wife. A normal person would just be quiet and be like, we are so lucky that we've been able to go on with our lives. Or, you'd think, maybe maybe Clarence Thomas should have called. This is what this guy who wrote the blog said, that Clarence Thomas should have called. And what he should have said was, good morning, Miss Hill. It's Clarence Thomas here. I want to apologize for everything I've put you through. It was bad enough to sexually harass you in the office, but to lie about it under oath and to keep that lie alive for almost 20 years is utterly shameful. I'm deeply sorry for having allowed others to question your honesty and credibility, and for all the pain that my selfish behavior has caused you. I hope that you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Have a good day. Of course, we all know that's never going to happen, don't we? All right, you guys, thanks a lot. I will talk with you later, and enjoy these pictures of these puppies. They are so sweet. All right, bye-bye.
Empowering those who yearn for more love, intimacy, and passion in their relationships and lives. Find the My Ransom Notes podcast online at eveningransom.com. Join us next time on the My Ransom Notes Noah podcast, the podcast for newly opening and awakening hearts.